In part 1 of this video, I discussed FTX and why it failed. In part 2, I discussed the potential implications on esport organization TSM. TSM made a $210 million sponsorship deal with FTX over 10 years. According to the press release, TSM changed its name to TSM FTX, distributed cryptocurrencies to its players and employees, and purchased $1 million in FTT, which is FTX's native token. The deal was described as like giving naming rights to a sports stadium, but there is reason to believe that the relationship between TSM and FTX may have been deeper than that. According to the press release, it appears that this partnership deal was going to allow TSM to increase its investments in esports and gaming. This included a quote-unquote massive expansion into new platforms such as mobile, opening new offices around the world, and increased investment in talent. So if the FTX deal was going to facilitate expansion at TSM, doesn't FTX's bankruptcy logically imply that this planned expansion will have to be downsized? A few months after the deal was announced, TSM opened the most expensive esport facility in the world. It was under construction since 2020. Typically, companies take out debt or have long-term lease arrangements for large facilities. If TSM was relying on any part of the $210 million deal to help pay off obligations like for a long-term lease or mortgage, I would find it very surprising if the bankruptcy of FTX does not affect TSM's operations. So in January 2022, TSM also announced that they acquired a team to enter the Dota 2 esport. TSM has also been expanding globally in its existing esports, but overall I think to TSM's credit, it doesn't appear to have been overspending or overexpanding due to the FTX deal. TSM has stated that it is strong, profitable, and stable. They state that the situation with FTX does not affect its operating plan. However, they didn't state which year of the operating plan they are referring to. They could be talking about 2022, which is almost over. Since FTX and TSM are private, the details of the deal are not well known, but they probably will be since the agreement could be made public in bankruptcy and lawsuit court filings. At the time of the deal in 2021, to me, $210 million over 10 years seemed like an outrageously high sum of money to change TSM's name. This leads me to believe that the $210 million may not have been mostly in cash, and the deal may have required that TSM do more than just change its name. According to the press release, TSM invested $1 million in FTT, which declined 96% in value between the date of the press release and the date of this video being made. If the deal required investment in the FTT coin, it may have also required that TSM purchase the equity of FTX as well. So TSM may have been required in this quote-unquote partnership deal to invest in the equity of FTX. In strategic deals, this is a common requirement. FTX's equity is probably worth zero now. So TSM may not have only lost out on $210 million over 10 years, it may have actually gone negative on the deal. So I hope the CEO of TSM and TSM employees did not have money deposited with FTX and were not big investors in FTX or FTT. The press release does not state what the form of consideration was for the $210 million. I would be very surprised if the vast majority of the $210 million was not paid in the form of cryptocurrency and or equity of FTX, which are probably both worth a lot less now. Losing out on $210 million over 10 years is a budget hit of $21 million per year on average. Relative to the size of TSM, $21 million of lost revenue is pretty high. According to Forbes, TSM had annual revenues of about $45 million in 2020. However, its profits may be a lot less than that. I would be surprised if TSM's profit margin is more than 10%, excluding the FTX deal. So 10% of $45 million is only $4.5 million, which is a lot less than $21 million. When expected profits decline by like 70%, that typically leads to major budget challenges. The following conclusion is just my opinion, and no part of it is a statement of fact. I have no knowledge of the relationship between FTX and TSM beyond what has been reported in the mainstream news media. The loss of the $210 million deal with FTX may have been a devastating blow to TSM. Not only do I think they lost out on nearly all of the $210 million, I would not be surprised if TSM went significantly negative on the deal. TSM could have lost money if it had money deposited with FTX, had invested in FTT or other coins, or invested in the equity of FTX. So I hope TSM was not required to invest in the equity of FTX, which is probably worth zero now. I also hope that TSM did not heavily rely on the FTX deal in its operating budget and financial planning. TSM could start cutting non-profitable divisions in esports and content creators and reducing salaries and various benefits for employees and players, but let's hope none of that happens. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.